Hello everyone, and welcome back to Mr. Nightwell Stories, where ordinary places can hide deeply unsettling secrets. I know many of you listen to these episodes as you're falling asleep, so before tonight's story begins, head down to the comments and tell us which city, state, or country you're listening from. If you enjoy dark mysteries and chilling true stories, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. All right, turn down the lights, get comfortable, and pay close attention because tonight's story begins somewhere no one expected in this new story. Thousands of fire lookout towers once stood across the forests of the American Northwest, built to spot smoke before small fires became unstoppable disasters. Most were abandoned after satellites and aircraft replaced human observers, their wooden staircases rotted away, windows shattered, and nature slowly reclaimed the mountains where they had once stood. But deep inside Oregon's Cascade Range, one forgotten lookout continued doing its job long after everyone assigned to it had disappeared. For more than 70 years, wildfire reports arrived from a tower that officially no longer existed. Every report accurately predicted fires before the first column of smoke became visible. The only mystery was who or what kept sending them. In the summer of 2018, Forest Service investigator Andrew Miller was assigned to review several unusual dispatch records connected to increasing wildfire activity across Central Oregon. At first glance, the files appeared routine. Every fire had been reported early enough for crews to contain it before it spread. The strange part was the source of the alerts. Each report originated from Lookout Station 27, a tower removed from government maps in 1951 after a severe winter avalanche destroyed the access road. Official records stated the building had collapsed shortly afterward and was never rebuilt. Andrew assumed the reports resulted from a software error linking modern satellite detections to an obsolete location. That explanation disappeared when technicians traced the radio signal itself. The transmissions originated from the exact coordinates where Station 27 had once stood. More surprisingly, the signal strength behaved like an old analog radio rather than a digital emergency beacon. Every message lasted less than 30 seconds. Every one followed identical wording. Smoke confirmed, wind from the west, dispatch immediately. Then the frequency returned to silence. Curious, Andrew assembled a small team consisting of veteran ranger Lisa Hernandez and communications technician Owen Brooks. Together, they hiked toward the abandoned mountain where Station 27 supposedly once stood. The climb took nearly 6 hours through dense pine forests untouched by logging for generations. According to every official map, nothing remained beyond a few broken concrete footings. Yet, when the team reached the summit, they found a weathered wooden lookout tower standing exactly where the destroyed structure should have been. The tower looked old, but remarkably intact. Fresh paint covered the handrails, every window remained spotless. An American flag gently moved in the breeze, despite no wind reaching the surrounding trees. Andrew carefully examined the staircase, expecting signs of recent maintenance. Instead, every nail showed decades of rust, while every wooden step felt surprisingly solid beneath his boots. It was as though time had aged the materials without weakening them. Inside the observation room sat an antique desk, binoculars, weather instruments, and an old shortwave radio quietly humming with static. A large wall map displayed every surrounding mountain ridge exactly as surveyors had drawn them in the late 1940s. A leather logbook rested beside the radio. Its pages contained daily weather observations written in neat handwriting beginning in May 1948. The entries continued without interruption until the present day. Every single date was accounted for. Not one page had been skipped in 70 years. Lisa immediately noticed something impossible. The ink never changed, the handwriting remained perfectly identical from the first page to the last. Whoever wrote the entries never appeared to age. More unsettling still, several recent wildfire reports matched actual incidents from only weeks earlier. The tower had somehow documented fires before modern satellites detected them. Andrew checked the radio logs stored by dispatch headquarters after returning home. The wording matched the handwritten entries exactly, down to every comma and weather measurement. The personnel file for Station 27 listed only one ranger assigned during its final season. His name was Samuel Whitaker, a 34-year-old fire observer who vanished during a lightning storm in September 1950. Search crews found the tower empty, the radio still operating, and Samuel's lunch untouched on the desk. No footprints led away despite fresh snow surrounding the lookout. Investigators concluded he likely became disoriented during the storm and fell somewhere down the mountain. His body was never recovered. Andrew decided to spend one night inside the tower, hoping to identify whoever continued maintaining it. Shortly after sunset, dense clouds covered the summit. Radio traffic faded into heavy static while temperatures dropped unexpectedly. At exactly 11:48 p.m., the antique radio crackled to life without anyone touching it. A calm male voice quietly reported smoke rising from Eagle Ridge nearly 15 miles away. Owen immediately checked satellite data. Nothing appeared on any thermal sensors. 43 minutes later, emergency dispatch confirmed a lightning strike had ignited a wildfire at the exact location described over the old radio. The team searched every room inside the tower but found no one. Yet, the logbook lying open on the desk now contained a fresh entry written only moments earlier. None of them had seen anyone pick up the pen. The ink remained wet. At the bottom of the page, beneath the wildfire report, another sentence appeared in smaller handwriting. Visitors should leave before sunrise. Against Lisa's advice, Andrew insisted on staying until morning. Around 3 o'clock, footsteps slowly climbed the wooden staircase from below. They sounded heavy and deliberate, pausing briefly at each landing before continuing upward. The door remained locked from the inside. No flashlight beams appeared through the windows. The footsteps stopped directly outside. 3 slow knocks echoed across the wooden walls. Then, complete silence returned. No one opened the door. Instead, the antique radio switched on once again. This time, the voice sounded much closer. It calmly asked dispatch whether replacement crews had finally arrived because the fire season had become unusually long. The transmission carried today's date, followed immediately by the year 1950. Andrew answered instinctively before realizing what he had done. The radio instantly fell silent. Every clock inside the tower stopped at exactly 3:17 a.m. When dawn finally broke, the summit looked completely different. The tower remained standing, but the surrounding forest had changed. Young saplings replaced towering pines. Recently cut logging roads vanished. Several distant mountains lacked communication towers built decades later. Looking through binoculars, Andrew saw smoke rising from a valley where modern highways should have been. Parked below the lookout stood an old Forest Service truck bearing a 1,950 government emblem. A lone ranger climbed out, carrying binoculars, and began walking toward the staircase. Before anyone could react, thick morning fog rolled across the summit. The tower shook violently as though struck by powerful wind. Seconds later, the fog cleared. The surrounding landscape returned to normal, the old truck was gone, modern forests stretched across the valleys once again, the antique radio had fallen silent. Only the logbook showed any sign something unusual had happened. A new sentence had appeared beneath the previous night's entry. They answered, this time. The signature below belonged to Samuel Whitaker. Federal officials quietly closed the investigation after concluding there was no evidence supporting paranormal claims. The lookout tower was scheduled for demolition due to structural concerns. When contractors reached the summit 2 weeks later, they found only an empty concrete foundation surrounded by wildflowers. The tower had vanished completely. No tire tracks, debris, or broken lumber remained. Survey equipment confirmed no structure had stood there for decades. Even the staircase Andrew photographed no longer existed. Today, wildfire dispatch centers across Oregon rely on satellites capable of detecting smoke within minutes. Even so, experienced operators occasionally receive brief analog transmissions on an obsolete frequency no modern radio officially monitors. Every message warns about a wildfire before technology detects it. Every report proves accurate. Every transmission ends with the same quiet sentence spoken by a calm male voice. Station 27 returning to watch. Forest Service records still list Samuel Whitaker as missing. Yet every fire season, someone continues protecting forests from a lookout tower that disappeared more than 70 years ago. In this new story. Elevator inspectors know darkness and sudden stops distort what passengers feel. A stalled car may seem to fall, cable movement can sound like footsteps, and minutes can feel much longer. But in October 2022, a Cincinnati inspector opened a service elevator missing for 48 years. Inside were passengers taken from different buildings and decades. Near the controls stood his wife, missing for 13 years, while the last button displayed their daughter's name. Michael Crane had inspected elevators for nearly 25 years and understood relays, interlocks, counterweights, pistons, and rescue procedures. His wife, Sarah, worked beside him as a safety engineer until a 2009 blackout at Ashbury Tower. Cameras showed her enter elevator 3 on the 8th floor. The doors closed, power failed for 9 seconds, and the car reopened empty in the lobby. Michael searched the shaft but found no blood, broken cables, hidden exit, or proof anyone had been inside. 13 years later, Michael inspected the abandoned Bellwether department store before demolition. The 12-story building had closed in 1986, and its passenger elevators were gone. One freight shaft remained sealed since 1974, when Freight Car 2 supposedly fell from the 10th floor during a fire. Rescuers found severed cables and one shoe in the basement pit, but neither the car nor its 12 employees. Michael entered with fire investigator Naomi Reyes and demolition supervisor Paul Harlan. Behind the loading dock, sealed doors vibrated hard enough to shed dust. An unpowered indicator moved from 10 toward 1. At 4, a bell rang behind the concrete and an inspection card slid beneath the doors. It carried Michael's signature and a completion date of the 19th of October, 2022 the following morning. The warehouse was silent except for the indicator, but whenever its needle passed a floor number, Michael heard a distant door trying to open inside the shaft. Paul checked the breaker panels twice and confirmed that every cable feeding the building had been removed. Workers removed the concrete. Michael released 2 rusted doors, expecting an empty shaft. Instead, Freight Car 2 waited level with the 4th floor, yellow lights glowing. 12 smoke-stained employees stood motionless inside, holding shopping bags. Sarah stood among them in her 2009 jacket, unchanged. Relief crossed her face, then terror when Michael reached toward her. An invisible barrier, colder and harder than glass, blocked the doorway. Michael could see and hear the passengers, but could not touch them. Sarah pressed her palm against his and pointed to buttons replaced by dates tied to unresolved elevator disappearances across Ohio, Kentucky, and Pennsylvania. One read 2009. The lowest button slowly engraved Emily Crane, 2:47 a.m. Emily, their 24-year-old daughter, was working nights at a downtown hospital. Naomi confirmed Emily was safe, but hospital elevators began stopping on unselected floors. Their interiors briefly changed from modern steel to wood paneling and brass controls. Emily saw an unmarked button beneath the basement level displaying Sarah's name. Soon, security lost sight of her, though her location badge kept descending through levels that did not exist. Michael found the 1,974 controller log. During the fire, 12 workers entered Freight Car 2 on 10. The manager ordered power cut so flames would not spread through electrical rooms. Chief Mechanic Walter Voss reported the car reached 4 and opened safely, yet witnesses heard pounding in the shaft for nearly an hour. A note said the indicator kept descending after the cables were found severed. Voss's private journal described an experimental recovery relay designed to bring a stalled car to the nearest floor during blackouts. Instead of measuring distance, it counted unfinished door cycles. If a car reached a landing without opening fully, the controller stored that arrival and tried to finish it during the next interruption. In 1974, power died exactly as the freight car reached 4. The system registered its passengers as both arrived and still traveling, trapping them between those conditions. Replacement parts salvaged from Bellwether carried fragments of that unfinished cycle into other buildings. During certain blackouts, resets, or emergency stops, a route opened into the missing car. Passengers entered from distant elevators, but became extra weight in the unresolved descent. Each disappearance added weight and moved the indicator slightly closer to 1. Reaching the lobby would release everyone, but only when the car matched the total weight recorded as the cables snapped. Sarah discovered this in 2009. Ashbury Elevator 3 used a Bellwether relay. During the 9-second outage, she recognized its old serial number and entered to disable it before the unfinished cycle could reopen. Michael saw the controller report 2 locations and reset what he assumed was a frozen computer. His command erased the modern car, but left Sarah registered as a passenger. For 13 years, he blamed faulty equipment rather than admit his reset trapped her. At 1:36 a.m., Emily's badge stopped below the hospital foundation. She appeared beside Sarah inside Freight Car 2, conscious but unable to hear Michael. Her weight moved the indicator from 4 to 3. Bells rang in abandoned shafts across Cincinnati, and closed buildings opened onto the same crowded car, inviting living passengers inside. Sarah wrote numbers in condensation, identifying the manual rescue procedure used before computerized controllers. Secure the counterweight, release the brake, align the landing, open the inner gate, then the outer doors. In 1974, Voss reversed the last 2 steps, opening the building doors while the car gate stayed locked. The controller had waited 48 years for the correct sequence. But Bellwether's counterweight was removed, so releasing the brake would send the car through every stored landing. Michael and Naomi descended the service ladder while Paul watched the indicator. Below the basement, doors bore addresses from other cities. One revealed a 1,987 hotel, another a 1,999 office tower. Behind each stood an empty car whose cables ran sideways through darkness toward Freight Car 2. The missing passengers were not held on one hidden floor. Their interrupted arrivals from different buildings and years had been joined to the same unfinished descent. At the bottom, the original counterweight hung untouched by rust, its rails ending in concrete. Names and body measurements of every trapped passenger covered it. Emily's number completed the 1,974 total. The system chose her not only for family ties, Sarah had delayed the descent by shifting passengers and luggage. Emily restored exact balance, preparing the final fall. Michael attached a rescue winch and raised the counterweight by hand. Each turn reopened a stored door. Later, passengers moved backward into the moments they entered a salesman to a 1,982 office, a child to a 1,996 hotel. The 12 Bellwether workers remained because their 4th floor landing had been demolished in the 1980s. Without it, they had nowhere to arrive. Naomi found the original 4th floor doors in a warehouse. Paul positioned them at the 1,974 landing, unsupported in the ruined building. Their indicator lit at 4. Michael restored Sarah's deleted 2009 inspection entry. Her name returned, the barrier vanished, and the inner gate began opening. Michael stepped inside. The passengers believed less than 2 hours had passed. Sarah remembered the reset as a flash followed by years compressed into seconds. Before the family could leave, the temporary outer doors closed. The controller rejected the rescue because Michael had never recorded entering the shaft. It still lacked one authorized inspector inside when the gate opened. Michael entered his employee number and admitted resetting Ashbury before locating Sarah. The panel accepted him, but his weight pushed the indicator from 3 to 2 and released the brake. The car descended while stored doorways flashed past. Sarah handled the gate, Emily the emergency lever, and Michael counted rail marks until the non-existent 4th floor aligned above. They had one chance. Naomi secured the counterweight, Sarah fully opened the inner gate, Emily released the outer latch, and Michael refused to reset until both locked open. At 2:46, the warehouse became Bellwether's 4th floor during the 1974 fire. Smoke filled the corridor, sprinklers hung motionless, and rescuers waited without seeing the car. The 12 employees crossed one by one and vanished into their own night. Sarah and Emily reached the modern warehouse, but the panel still showed one passenger, Michael, beside 2009. His reset had not only trapped Sarah, it registered him as operator of an incomplete inspection. Someone had to remain until every stored landing closed, or the cycle would collect again. Sarah re-entered, removed Michael's card, and inserted her 2009 safety authorization beside it. Their signatures proved one entered the car while the other stayed at the controller during the blackout. Naomi reset only after both crossed the threshold together. The indicator reached 1, returned to 4, and died. Freight car 2 dropped inches, then dissolved into rust, keys, tickets, and call buttons from dozens of missing elevators. At exactly 2:47, Michael, Sarah, Emily, Naomi, and every later passenger stood together in the Bellwether loading dock. Sarah had not aged since 2009. The 12 workers returned to 1,974 and escaped, changing newspapers and family records. History now said Freight Car 2 was found empty after a successful rescue, although Michael and Naomi remembered entering it 48 years later. Bellwether's shaft was filled with concrete. 6 months later, Michael received a report from a 12-level apartment building whose elevator stopped at a 13th floor. Its log showed one passenger entering in 1961 and remaining in motion for 62 years. The empty car's measured weight exactly equaled Michael, Sarah, and Emily combined. Elevator inspectors now follow an unofficial rule when a stalled car reports 2 floors at once. They never reset until every passenger is seen outside and both door sets complete their cycle. If a button shows a name, date, or non-existent building, nobody enters alone. Some elevators are not trapped between floors, but between arrival and release, collecting enough human weight to finish a descent that should have ended decades ago. In this new story. Across the deserts of Nevada, dozens of abandoned mining towns slowly disappear beneath wind, sand, and time. Most survive only as broken wooden buildings and fading names on forgotten maps. Yet, among retired emergency dispatchers, one place continues to appear in conversations long after every resident supposedly left. It was a town called Silver Hollow, abandoned after the final mine closed in 1976. Power lines were removed, roads fell apart, and every house was left empty. Officially, no one had lived there for nearly 3 decades. That certainty changed forever on the night a terrified child called 911 from a telephone that no longer existed. On the 18th of October 2003, dispatcher Rachel Monroe began another overnight shift inside the Clark County Emergency Communications Center. The evening had been unusually quiet, with only a handful of traffic accidents reported across the county. Shortly after 2 in the morning, one incoming emergency call appeared without a caller ID. Rachel answered immediately, expecting another roadside emergency somewhere along the highway. Instead, she heard a frightened young boy whispering through heavy static. He repeatedly asked for someone to come quickly because people outside were trying to get inside the house. Rachel calmly asked for his location. After several seconds of silence, the boy answered with remarkable clarity. He said he lived on Ash Street in Silver Hollow. Rachel paused, assuming she had misunderstood the name. She asked him to repeat it. Once again, the child quietly replied that everyone in Silver Hollow had locked their doors because the knocking always began after midnight. Before Rachel could ask another question, the line filled with loud banging sounds followed by hurried footsteps across wooden floors. Then the call abruptly disconnected. Believing it might be a prank, Rachel searched the county database for Ash Street. No active address appeared anywhere in Nevada. An older mapping archive, however, showed Ash Street inside the abandoned mining town of Silver Hollow, nearly 70 miles away. Curious, Rachel contacted the county sheriff. The deputy on duty immediately recognized the town's name. He explained that Silver Hollow had been deserted for decades after repeated mining accidents forced every remaining family to relocate. According to state records, every telephone line serving the town had been removed before Rachel had even graduated from high school. Despite the impossible circumstances, procedure required officers to investigate any emergency call involving a child. Deputy Lucas Grant and Ranger Melissa Ortega drove towards Silver Hollow before sunrise. The highway eventually gave way to cracked pavement, then gravel, and finally a narrow dirt road disappearing between dry hills. As dawn approached, the abandoned town slowly emerged through layers of desert dust. Weathered buildings leaned toward empty streets, rusted vehicles rested where they had been parked decades earlier. Every window reflected the rising sun. There were no signs of recent visitors, no tire tracks, and no footprints crossing the soft desert sand. The officers searched every building they could safely enter. Inside the old school, books still covered classroom desks exactly as they had been left years before. The grocery store shelves stood empty except for broken glass scattered across the floor. Wind echoed through abandoned homes whose furniture remained untouched beneath thick layers of dust. Nothing suggested anyone had lived there in years. Then Lucas noticed something unusual inside a small white house near the center of town. Dust covered every room except a narrow hallway leading toward an old telephone mounted on the kitchen wall. The black rotary telephone appeared almost untouched by time. Unlike everything surrounding it, the receiver carried almost no dust. Curious, Lucas lifted it from the cradle, expecting silence. Instead, a steady dial tone echoed through the handset. Melissa immediately checked the wall behind the phone. No wires connected it to anything. The electrical conduit ended several feet away, cut cleanly decades earlier. Nevertheless, the dial tone continued without interruption until Lucas slowly placed the receiver back into its cradle. Back at dispatch headquarters, Rachel requested archived emergency call recordings connected to Silver Hollow. The records department insisted none existed. However, an elderly technician remembered hearing rumors about unexplained calls received during the late 1980s. After searching storage shelves filled with magnetic tapes, he uncovered one damaged recording labeled only with a date. The audio contained another frightened voice asking for police in Silver Hollow. The call ended exactly the same way Rachel's had, with loud knocking, hurried footsteps, and complete silence. The recording had been made 16 years earlier. Further investigation uncovered 4 additional recordings spanning nearly 25 years. Every caller sounded different. Some were adults, others children, yet each described hearing someone knocking outside after midnight. None of the callers survived long enough for authorities to identify them. Even stranger, every emergency call originated from the same disconnected telephone number officially removed from service in 1976. Telecommunications experts declared the recordings impossible. The number simply could not exist anymore. Rachel became determined to learn who the frightened boy had been. Census records revealed that the White House once belonged to the Carter family, whose youngest son, Benjamin, had been 9 years old when the town was evacuated. Historical documents stated the family safely relocated to Reno with every other resident. Yet, an old newspaper article published weeks after the evacuation mentioned Benjamin briefly disappearing during the final night before being found asleep inside the family home. The article never explained why search volunteers claimed the house had already been empty when they first entered it. 1 week later, Rachel received another emergency call at precisely 2:14 in the morning. The same frightened boy whispered that they had finally entered the house. This time, however, he did not ask for help. Instead, he quietly begged Rachel not to send anyone because they would hear the knocking too. Before the line disconnected, Rachel heard another voice somewhere deeper inside the house, calmly asking whether the telephone had finally started working again. The second voice belonged to an adult man. Neither speaker was ever identified. Lucas and Melissa returned to Silver Hollow the following afternoon, carrying modern communication equipment. The disconnected telephone remained exactly where they had left it. Hoping to document the mystery, technicians connected recording devices around the house before leaving them overnight. The next morning, every battery had been completely drained despite being fully charged. Only one audio recorder contained anything at all. It captured 12 minutes of absolute silence, followed by 4 slow knocks against the front door. Several seconds later, a child quietly answered, "They're here again." No footsteps approached the microphone, and no door ever opened. County officials eventually demolished the unstable buildings remaining in Silver Hollow for public safety. The White House was reduced to rubble, and the old telephone disappeared during cleanup operations. Investigators assumed these strange emergency calls would finally stop. Instead, the following autumn, another operator received a brief 911 call from the same disconnected number. This time, there was no frightened voice, only the sound of a rotary telephone ringing somewhere in the distance before the line quietly disconnected by itself. Today, Silver Hollow exists only as scattered foundations slowly disappearing beneath the Nevada desert. Modern GPS systems barely recognize the town's location, and travelers rarely have any reason to leave the highway. Yet, emergency dispatch archives still preserve several unexplained recordings connected to a telephone line officially removed nearly half a century ago. Every recording begins with a desperate request for help. Every recording ends with the same slow knocking, and according to technicians responsible for maintaining the archive servers, one additional audio file occasionally appears without explanation. Its creation date always shows tomorrow's date, and its length is always exactly 2 minutes and 14 seconds. No one has ever managed to play it before it quietly deletes itself again.